Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastoma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Please join us in chanting the first 10 verses of the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
Arjuna Uvacha Evam Satatayuktaye Bhakta Swam Paryupasate Ye Chapyaksharam Avyaktam Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaha. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Maya Veshamano Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopyetaha Te Me Yuktatamamataha Ye Tvaksharamanirdeşam Avyaktam Paryupasate Sarvatra Gamachintyam Cha Kutastamachalam Dhruvam Sanniyam Yendriyagramam Sarvatra Samabuddhayaha Te Prapnuvanti Mameva Sarvabhutahite rataha Kleshodhigatarastesham Avyaktasaktachetasam Avyaktahi gatir dukkham Dehavadbhiravapyate Ye tu sarvani karmani Mayi sanyastha matparaha Ananyenaiva yogena Mam dhyayanta upasate Tesham maham samuddharta Mrityu samsara sagarat Bhavami nachirat partha Mayyaveshita chetasam Mayyeva mana adhatsva Mayi buddhim niveshaya Nivashishyasi mayyeva Atha urdhvam na samshayaha Atha chittam samadhatum Na shaknoshi mayi stiram Abhyasa yogena tataha Mamichhaptum dhananjaya Abhyasepya samarthosi Matkarma paramo bhava Madarthamabhikarmani Kurvan siddhimavapsasi. Welcome back
to the second day of the discourses on the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, run up to the celebration of Krishna Janmashtami. As we discussed yesterday, the backdrop of the Bhagavad Gita is a family feud, the war between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. I touched upon it yesterday. The strength of the Kauravas in comparison to Pandavas. Kauravas managed to secure 11 allies, supporters, 11 battalion, armies of many kings, while Pandavas only had 7 battalions, 7 kings joined them in their fight. Some of the most powerful warriors of the time joined Kauravas, and 4 of the noteworthy warriors were Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Duryodhana. Each one of them invincible. Even one of those warriors with their army can rout the Pandavas. So on paper, Kauravas were much, much stronger in every sense of the term. But the result was that the Pandavas emerged victorious. Now, this aspect of the Mahabharata is describing one of the very important aspects of life. Remember, don't look at Bhagavad Gita only as a religious text, as many people do. Yes, you can view it as a religious text. Of course, it is the one of the tenets of Hinduism, one of the prasthanatrayas, 3 foundations of Hindu scriptures: Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra, and Upanishads. But don't look at the Bhagavad Gita only as a spiritual religious text of Hinduism. It is the greatest manual on life, action, and leadership. Some of the most profound leaders of the world, not only from India, like Gandhi, and of course now Mr. Narendra Modi, and even from the West, some of the great leaders have resorted to Bhagavad Gita to learn the true essence of leadership and management. So how does the war between the Kauravas and the Pandavas relate to leadership? Kauravas have had all the resources. So it is one thing to have the resources. It is quite different to be able to use the resources. Kaurav had 11 battalion with some of the most profound, invincible warriors. But the leader, Duryodhana, did not really know how to mobilize these resources to achieve his goal of winning the war. So it's not enough just to have the resources. We got to know how to use it as well. I think that image sort of summarizes this principle that I'm talking about. A person can have all the resources under his feet, but if he doesn't know how to use it, what's the point of having resources? There are thousands and thousands of people in the world who've got the resources under their command, but they did not know how to make good use of it. That is exactly what Mahabharata is trying to convey. In life, there are people with ability, then there are people with resources, but rarely are those people who have the ability and the resources at a very high level. They are leaders. A person with a lot of ability, at the same time, a lot of resources at his beck and call. Ability, what I mean is that, of course, academic education, technical skills, people skills, or human relation skills, etc. They're all part of ability. Resources would mean, of course, wealth, money, people, human resources, material resources, and also time. There are many people, I'm sure you know, born in affluent family. They inherited the wealth from their parents, and they used their ability and resources, and they've expanded their business or whatever they're doing at an incredibly high level. In fact, there are many, many cases, but one profound case is the Ambani family in India. The Ambanis are the richest, Mukesh Ambani, one of the richest or the richest Asian in the world. Inherited the resources from the father, inherited the assets worth about $25 billion, and it doubled into several billions. All right. Have the resources, at the same time have the ability, and the wealth is multiplied for the country. All right. Then you have the second type of people who've got very less resources and very low in the ability. Resources in the sense they don't have money, they don't have people support, they don't have the material resources, they don't have time available, and they don't have the education, technical skill, human resources skills, etc. Very low in the resources as well as ability. Then you have the third category of people who's got very high resources, but very low in the ability. You would come across some children born in the affluent family. They inherit the parents' or ancestral wealth, and they enjoy. That's all that they do. And they blow up whatever they inherited. They have very high resources, but they didn't have the ability to multiply the wealth, not only for themselves, even for the other people, for the society, for the country. So people with very high resources, but very low ability, they simply enjoy the wealth. That's about it. Then you have the fourth category of people who've got very high ability, very low resources. There are many people born in relatively poor family, middle class, lower middle class family, very low resources in terms of money, people, etc. But they have created, they found resources. So those who have low resources but have the ability and capable of finding resources or utilize the existing resources to multiply it. that person is a leader. People with very high ability, very low resources, but they make use of the existing available resources. They don't sit and complain, I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have people to support. No, they don't. They make use of their ability or whatever resource that they have and guide the existing resources to success. That is exactly what Bhagavan Shri Krishna did in the Kurukshetra war. A true leader never sit and complain about lack of wealth, lack of time, lack of resources, lack of people. He makes use of the resources that is available, whatever little it is, however small it is. He makes use of the wealth that is available, people that are available, and he grows it. That is a true leader. That is what Bhagavan Shri Krishna displayed through the Kurukshetra war. When he was beginning the war, he did not complain to Yudhishthira, the king at that time, that we only have 7 battalions. No. And he did not even fight. He sat as the charioteer of Arjuna and strategized. Through this episode, Bhagavad Gita or Mahabharata depicts what is true leadership. Who's a leader? Leader is not one being pushy, bossy, obnoxious to the other people. No. A leader is one. You're a leader if your action inspires others to dream more. You are a leader if your life and action inspire others to learn more. You are a leader if your life and action inspire the other people to do more, to think more, and to become more. You are then a leader. It is not a title. Leadership is that ability to inspire people, to surrender to a higher, nobler purpose, a nobler goal, a common goal. That's exactly what Mahatma Gandhi learned from the Bhagavad Gita. That's why he's considered one of the outstanding leaders. Yes, there may be certain action that he has done which caused the division of India. That, of course, is really regrettable. But one thing that he has done is that he did inspire the people to look at the country as the cause. Leadership is the ability to bring out the best in the other people. Leadership, it is that ability to get along, go down to the people's level, get along and inspire them. That is what Krishna did. Not to sit and complain about how less money you have, how less resources you have, how less time you have. Leaders never complain about time. They never say, I am busy. A lot of people suffer from busyness syndrome. I'm busy, very busy, very busy. When you say you're very busy, simply means you're very inefficient. I repeat, if you say I'm very busy, it simply means you are very inefficient. There's a saying, if you want something to get done, give it to a busy man. Meaning that he doesn't say he's busy, he makes sure that he gets done. But today, everybody complains about lack of time. This is what Krishna did. He had ability. he had the vision. He had very low resources, only 7 battalion and only one noteworthy warrior, that was Arjuna. He used that one warrior and destroyed the entire Kaurava clan and established dharma. It's not about winning the war, it's about establishing righteousness in the country. It is about accomplishing a great goal, great purpose in life. That is what Krishna displayed through the episode here. A purpose, an ideal beyond one's own self-interest. Then you are a leader. Now the question is, what makes this leader different, or what makes a person who has low resources and high ability different from the others? What distinguishes a person who has the ability yet less resources and yet achieve great accomplishments? Number one, dedication to a higher purpose beyond oneself, beyond one's own self-interest. Number one. Number two, he or she has the right mental disposition, right attitude, right value systems, strategy. That was Krishna. Inspiration, passion, energy, consistency and commitment to that purpose. Kauravas had resources but had knowledge and skill also, but there was no purpose. Each one of those warriors, where they joined, 11 battalion joined Kauravas for their own personal interest, whereas the allies who joined Pandavas were not for their personal interest, but for a higher cause. When your mind is dedicated to a higher cause, a higher purpose, magic happens in your personality. Energy, power, potential oozes out of your system. That is what Bhagavan Sri Krishna displayed. But the problem today is that people don't have the time to invest and understand this great literature, the Bhagavad Gita. The study of the Bhagavad Gita gives you that yukti. The word yukti is a very significant word in Sanskrit. The word yukti means intelligence. That's a very limited meaning. Yukti means strategy, clarity of thinking, insight, intuition. People with yukti, they are able to transform difficulties into opportunity. They are able to convert adversities to their advantage. That is what Krishna did in the Mahabharata. With such insight, intuition. Today's educated people have tuition, but who are the people who really make it in life, to make an impact in the world, are not the people with tuition, but people with intuition. Tuition is what you learn from outside, the bookish knowledge. Intuition is something that springs within. Intuition comes with sound value system. Intuition comes by commitment to an ideal. Yukti means insight. A lot of people have sight. They say they have a goal, but they don't have the insight. Many people have the vision, but they don't have the ability to envision. And those people who has that vision, that ability to envision, who has the insight, who has the intuition, who has the yukti, they are the people who work wisely. You heard the expression, don't work hard, work smart. But today's concept of working smart is, many people use that paradigm, work smart. It's all about, cornering people and making money for themselves. That's what a lot of people understand as smart. Yes, don't work hard, work smart. But Bhagavad Gita says, don't even work smart, work wisely. You got to think beyond working smart. Don't be clever, be wise. All right. Work wisely, meaning that is where the idea of spiritual intelligence comes. Spiritual intelligence is to think beyond one's own personal interest. The 5 brothers, the Pandavas, guided by the ingenious Bhagavan Sri Krishna, inspired the people to work wisely. That is where Bhakti comes in. You might wonder, what is the role of Bhakti in leadership? It is very, very relevant, ladies and gentlemen. Bhakti or devotion is not something only meant for the temple or your prayer room. The concept of Bhakti that Bhagavan Krishna talks about is relevant in every walks of your life, right from your boardroom to your bedroom. In all walks of life. It is not a religious concept. It is something that you got to apply in your boardroom, in your daily walks of life. But the concept of bhakti is very narrowly understood, confined to rituals and prayers and temples and worships and pilgrimages, etc. They're all the periphery of devotion. The essence of bhakti or devotion is much, much deeper, much more than that. That's exactly what we are going to analyze in the 12th chapter, in the 20 verses. So the question that Arjuna asked is, which of the two worship, form worship or the formless worship, which of these two worship is better? Who is able to reach the ultimate purpose of life, God realization? Those who worship form, that is an idol, a symbol, or those who conceive the supreme reality, the nameless, formless reality? Those devotees, whoever steadfast thus worship you, and those again who worship the imperishable, the unmanifest, which of these are better versed in yoga? As I told you, many people, their ability to envision, imagination is not so high. As a result, if they don't see a form of a deity, Krishna, Rama, Hanuman, Vishnu, Saraswati, whoever it is, their mind is not inspired. To them, need a form. So Arjuna asked this question. Let's listen to Krishna's answer, verse 2.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Maya Veshamano Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopyetaha Te Me Yuktatamamataha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the second verse reads, the blessed Lord said. What did Shri Bhagavan say? He said, we project this verse for you. There you go. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the blessed Lord said, those who fixing mind on me, Maya Vesha Mano Yema, ever steadfast, worship me with supreme faith, them do I consider most perfect in yoga. All right. First of all, as I told you, the entire Bhagavad Gita is a conversation, a dialogue, a question and answer session between Lord Krishna and Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna was unable to wage the war because he was overcome with a lot of emotion. And he surrendered to Lord Krishna and asked many questions, seeking assistance. In response to that question, those questions, is the entire Bhagavad Gita. The blessed Lord said, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Uvacha means said. Bhagavan means Lord. Bhagavan also means one who possesses 6 bhagas. 6 bhagas means 6 glories, 6 virtues, absolute virtues. What are those 6 bhagas? Aishwarya, that is absolute wealth. Here, wealth is not in the sense of money, stock, or bond, or property. Wealth in the sense of wealth of virtues, wealth of qualities. And then virya, absolute strength. The real strength, real power comes by when you are unselfish, when you're sacrificial. Yasha, meaning absolute glory, fame. Shriya, absolute beauty. Not the physical beauty, as Oliver Goldsmith says, handsome is that handsome does. Jnana, absolute wisdom. And vairagya, total detachment. One who possesses these 6 bhagas or virtues is Bhagavan, and that was Lord Krishna. One who possesses these profound virtues. We are listening to the Bhagavad Gita from no less than a person who possesses these 6 bhagas, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Said, what did he say? Those who fixing mind on me, on me, aveshya, having fixed. What did he fix? Manaha. And nitya yukta, ever steadfast. Worship with shraddha, with faith. Do I consider most perfect in yoga, meaning we're on the spiritual path. Now here, obviously, Krishna giving a direct answer to Arjuna, which worship is better, form worship or formless worship? Krishna says form worship is better. Because Arjuna was at the level of form worship. He needs that form worship. So he says, form worship for you is better. All right. But just because you erect a temple, some people judge the depth of devotion by the size of statue. It doesn't really matter how big or how small the statue is. It doesn't matter which deity you worship. Krishna, Rama, Hanuman, Vishnu, Lakshmi, Saraswati. It doesn't matter. Then what matters is those who fixing mind on me, the form, ever steadfast, meaning nitya yukta, consistency. Remember, spirituality, religion is not something that you use as a spare wheel. Most people practice bhakti or devotion when they are in trouble, when they have a financial setback, or when they are not well, or when there is a difficulty in the family, when there is any challenges. Everybody become great bhaktas, great devotees. That is not it. You don't use bhakti or devotion as a spare wheel. You use bhakti, devotion to God as a steering wheel that you use constant. So long as you're driving on the road, steering wheel is the most important aspect of your driving. Speed can be slow or faster, but steering wheel. Similarly, devotion to God should be used like a steering wheel, not a spare wheel. Ever steadfast, consistently. It is not an emergency exit. Like most people misunderstand. When they have problem, they run to temple, they run to guru, they run study the Bhagavad Gita. But the problem is, if you're able to maintain your devotion, your study of the Bhagavad Gita, or whatever deeper prayer that you're practicing consistently, perhaps you may even have avoided the problem. Devotion helps you not to solve the problems, but it dissolves the problem. Ever steadfast, with supreme shraddha, faith. The word shraddha is loosely translated as faith, but it means much more than faith. It is not a blind faith to a personal God or a guru, form of a guru. Faith, shraddha, is faith supported by corroboratory evidences. Shraddha is a devotion supported by understanding. When your devotion is not supported by understanding, your devotion is very flimsy. Slightest provocation, you are ready to change your religion or change your faith. That's not it. There are people, so-called people, so devoted, but one challenge, they decided, okay, this is not the religion that I want to be. Let me convert to another religion, Christianity, or Islam, or whatever. That is not it. Supreme shraddha, faith. Joe Goldsmith, an English writer, defined shraddha, faith, as belief in a thing that I do not know until I come to know what I believe in. Faith is a belief in a thing that I do not know until I come to know what I believe in. One definition. Rabindranath Tagore, the great Indian poet, philosopher, defined faith as a bird that feels the light and sings while the dawn is still dark. Faith is a bird that feels the light and sings while the dawn is still dark. Adi Shankaracharya, the great Indian philosopher, lived about 1300 years ago, composed one of the most powerful Vedantic compositions, like Vivek Chudamani, Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, Sadhana Panchakam, Bhajagovindam, etc., defined faith as that capacity to take in knowledge, reflect upon it, contemplate upon it, think about it over and over again, digest it, assimilate it, and bring it into your practice. It is not how many volumes of books or verses of the Bhagavad Gita that you read, a few verses that you read and understood, implement that into your practical life. That is Shraddha, faith. If you are able to combine the definition of Joe Goldsmith, Rabindranath Tagore, and Adi Shankaracharya, you get the picture of what is Shraddha, faith. It is not a blind faith. So with supreme Shraddha, them do I consider most perfect in yoga. So he says that since Arjuna, as a student, his ability is to practice form worship, he's giving a direct instruction to Arjuna that form worship is better. Then the question is, then what about the formless worship? Let's see what Krishna says.
Ye tvaksharamanirdeşam avyaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kūthastamachalam dhruvam sanniyamyendriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhutahite rathaah.
What about those who are able to worship formless God without any form? He says, but he discussed the form worship as to what it is. All right. The formless worship, he says, that those who worship the imperishable, indefinable, aksharam means imperishable, anirudeshyam, the indefinable, avyaktam, the unmanifest, paryupasade, worship that which is sarvatragam, the omnipresent, achintyam, unthinkable, and kutastham, that is unchanging, immovable, and eternal. What about those? And he continues in the fourth verse. He says, having restrained the group of senses, even-minded everywhere, rejoicing in the welfare of all beings, they also reach me. They also reach God. Now, if you read carefully, Lord Krishna is very soft on formless worship, whereas he's very vehement on form worship. Why? Because most people in the world are in the category of who are capable of form worship. They worship an idol, a symbol. They need a symbol. They need an idol to conceive the supreme reality. Since that is the case, he is very assertive and vehement that form worship is worshiping an idol, worshiping a form of God, a symbol of God is the best. But those people, there are a category of people whose mind is inspired not only when they see the form of Krishna or Shiva or Hanuman or any other deity. For them, every form, a bird fluttering the wings and flying, that can remind them of God. Those people, them, life itself is a great mystery. If life appears very mysterious to you, then you are attuning to God. Now, who created this mysterious existence called life? They don't need a symbol of Krishna to think about the Supreme. They can just imagine, my God, I'm breathing. Isn't that a miracle? Just the fact that you are able to breathe. Isn't that a mysterious thing? Your eyesight, just by looking at the words, those black lines, which we call letters, which constitute words, words constitute sentences, and sentences constitute book, and books constitute several volumes. And when you read that, those things falls on the retina and it creates an idea in your mind. Isn't that a mystery? Isn't that a miracle? Those people who are able to see the expression of God, inspiration in every little thing that happens to them, they are the formless worshippers. But those who worship the imperishable, something that is not a substance, anything that is substance is perishable. The world is perishable, but the substratum behind this world is imperishable. The world constituted of the names and forms. That is the imperishable aspect of that life. And then he says, indefinable. It cannot be described. That God cannot be described, he says. Anything to be described, you need attribute. You need, what do you call this? A work done, karma, that is work. There has to be characteristics, certain properties. God doesn't have a property, doesn't have a characteristic, doesn't have a guna. So it is undefinable. It is unmanifest, meaning your eyes cannot see it. Your nose cannot smell it. Your hand cannot touch God. You can touch the idol. You cannot touch God. What about that unmanifest reality? The omnipresent. Sarvatragam, something that is everywhere. Something that is everywhere. What is something that is everywhere? Something whose dimensions are infinite. Length, breadth, and height is infinite. That is omnipresent and unthinkable. To think, you need an object. You can think about an object, a substance. You can think about an emotion like gratitude or forgiveness. You can conceive an idea, an ideology. You can conceive about a particular party, whether it is Republican or Democrats, whether it is Congress or BJP. It's an idea. It's simply an ideology, and you get hooked onto the idea. So God cannot be thought about. It's beyond thinking. It is achintya. Chinta means thought. God cannot be thought about. Unchanging, meaning it is not perishable. Something that is constantly changing what is the world, but the very substratum of the world is the divinity that is unchanging and immovable. Achalam, meaning it's all pervading. I can move from here to the other corner because I'm only here, I'm not there. Anything that is all pervading is immobile and eternal. Eternal is something that exists at all periods of time. The world exists now, the waking world. When you go to deep sleep, you experience nothingness. When you go to dream, you have a different experience altogether. So the world is not eternal. So eternal is something that existed in the past, it exists now, it will continue to exist in the future. That is the supreme reality. So these are all called indicative definitions, certain indicators to direct our thinking towards the higher, towards God. These are all not definitions of God. They're all giving a certain direction to think. Just as in mathematics, if you want to find an unknown point called x, where is the x? X in the sense of the letter X, not that X that you're thinking about. The X letter. X is unknown. You don't know where the X is. But you have two known points. You know the point A and you know the point B. But the point X is unknown. And you're also told the point X is 10 centimeter from point A, and it is 15 centimeter from point B. So what do? You take a compass. First of all, you draw a line from point A to B, a straight line. And you take the compass and mark 10 centimeter from point A, and you put an arc. And with the same compass, you measure 15 centimeter and you put another arc. The point between those two arcs unite, that is point X. Similarly, when we say God, God has no, that word has no meaning. It is an unknown entity. We don't know what that is. God is like saying X. It is something to be found out. You got to discover it through the spiritual sadhana. God is not what you need to seek. It is an unknown. It's just like saying it's just simply a word. It makes no sense. Yet everybody uses the word God. It is the mysterious thing that many religions have created, that there is something called God. But the fact is that there is something beyond this existence. I don't know what that is, but there is something. When you go to the Upanishads, the master says, I know it, but I don't know it. Not that I know it, meaning I know there is something, but I don't know what that is. So it is that X. There is a point, but I don't know. So how do you do it? 10 centimeter from point A, 15 centimeter from point B, that meeting point is X. That is the way. Similarly, these are all the indications. So those people who are able to think about the unthinkable, all right, something that is immovable, but it's not only intellectually conceiving those terminologies. He says, having restrained the group of senses, he's giving us the condition, the qualifications necessary to practice formless worship. Don't use this as an excuse to stay away from temple or religious places or going for pilgrimage, etc. Oh, I'm doing formless worship. Bhagavan Krishna says in the 12th chapter. Don't use that as an excuse. Practice. So who are those who qualified? Having restrained the group of senses, even-minded everywhere, rejoicing in the welfare of all beings, they also reach me. It is not only who worship the idol or form, but then if you want to worship formless, nameless reality, there are 3 disciplines that he's talking about at the physical, emotional, intellectual level. And what are the 3 disciplines? Having controlled the group of senses, even-minded everywhere, rejoicing in the welfare of all beings. If you are not able to practice these 3, don't even think about formless worship. Stick to form worship. Go to the place of worship, engage in prayers and rituals. But if you have this controlling, group of senses, sanniyamya indriya gramam, having controlled the group of senses. What are the two groups of senses? There are two groups of sense organs. They are called jnanendriyas and karmendriyas. Jnanendriyas are the 5 organs of perception, namely the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin. You also have the second group of senses called karmendriyas, the hands, legs, organ of speech, genitals, and organs of evacuation. So the first prerequisite to practice formless worship is mastery over the senses. Examine. We all have some sense organ or the other over which you have weakness for. Some people have weakness for taste. And it's not difficult to find out people who have got weakness for taste. From the look of it, you can make out just from the size. Then there are people who have got weakness for tongue in the sense of speaking. You ask them, how are you? How are you is a greeting, isn't it? You made the mistake of asking the other person, how are you? Next 1 hour, he's giving you the entire 30 years of his medical history, what all he went through. Nobody is interested in your grief. Tell them something good. Unable to control this organ of speech. Then there are people who have weakness for eyes or ears or the taste, whatever it is. Identify which is your most powerful sense organ that is weakness, that you have weakness for. Start the control there. So don't worry about the entire group of senses. When you start there, you'll find all the other senses being controlled. So anything that any sense enjoyment, any sense pleasures that interfere with your pursuit, with your goal, that is sense control. But when it comes to sense control, a lot of people are good at it. As we grow older, when you grow from 30 to 40 to 50, you will find yourself naturally, there is a built-in sense controls being built up. That's not enough. And he says, even-minded everywhere, sarvatra samabuddhaya, one who regard everybody equally. The qualification necessary to practice formless worship. But at the moment, we are so judgmental. We have a tendency to judge people and say, this person is good because you spent 15 minutes or 10 or 15 minutes with him or her, and he or she appeared to be very nice, and you judge and say, he is or she is a good person. And you met somebody else for 5 minutes, and that person happened to behave badly. For what? There may be a legitimate reason. But you make a judgment and say, he's a bad person, he's a devil, he's an evil person. Nobody is evil or good. Each one of us have got enough good and bad in every one of us. It does not behove us to judge, to judge the rest of us. Don't sit and judgment over and say, and don't put compartmentalize people, say this person is good or bad. Even-mindedness, samabuddhi. When you judge you have no right to judge the other people because you don't understand their complete behavior, complete personality. A person whom you think is good may end up turning out to be terrible later, and vice versa. Even-minded, samabuddhi. You got to understand there is a common denominator, the divinity that is functioning through all living beings. If you are able to cross beyond the physical, emotional, intellectual differences and identify that common thread, If you're a physical person, you will find maximum differences because physical body is different from one person to the other. If you're an emotional person, your discrimination or differentiation reduces. If you're an intellectual person, reduces further. But if you focus upon the Atman and you see no differences at all, it is that same divinity, just as it is the same electricity that functions through all the light bulbs. And the third qualification necessary to practice Nirguna Upasana or the formless worship is rejoicing in the welfare of all beings. That is difficult. Sarvatra Samabuddhayaha. And then he says, Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. What that means, it's a beautiful qualification, quality rather. One who revel in the welfare of all beings. If you are not able to revel in the welfare of all beings, forget formless worship, go and practice form worship. Go to the temple, engage in rituals and prayers, etc. But in and through all that, you got to think beyond. There is a supreme reality. Don't get fanatically attached to the form. Don't be an idol worshiper. Don't be an idol worshiper. Be an ideal worshiper. Rejoicing in the welfare of all beings, a beautiful quality. Today, a lot of people revel in the suffering of other people. True bhakti, true devotion is when you are genuinely happy for other people's success, other people's happiness. You got to be a lover of happy human faces, to see other people succeeding, to see other people being happy. That is what he's talking about, the qualification that is necessary. That is why when after the ritual prayer is over, we chant the Shanti Pada. Sarvesham swastir bhavadu, Sarvesham shantir bhavadu, Sarvesham mangalam bhavadu, Sarve bhavandu sugina. Goes on. Let everybody be happy. Let everybody be peaceful. The true prayer is not praying for your own peace. When you pray for the peace of the world reciprocates you with peace. Remember, peace and happiness works on the principle of reciprocity. Meaning, what that means is that when you give it to the world, it comes back to you exponentially. Yes, not everybody may have enough resources to give. You may not have enough money to give. You may not have enough time to impart to the other people. You may not have many other resources to give. But you cannot say, I don't have resources to think for other people's welfare. When you pray, keep genuinely think about the welfare of other people, especially those people that you don't like. Yes, everybody can pray for their family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues, etc. But that person at the workplace who has been irritating you, who's been getting onto your nerve for several months, are you able to pray for the welfare of that person? If you're not able to pray for the welfare of that person, forget about formless worship. By you praying for the welfare of that person, by you praying for the happiness of that person, you are not losing anything. If at all, you're gaining a lot. Yes, it is easy to pray, okay, all the South Africans, all the Indians, all the Americans, or it's no big deal for your friends and family. But pray for that one person who offended you to the core. If you are able to do that, you will find genuinely, not faking. Okay, start with fake, imitating, but eventually it becomes real. Then comes the real peace. The world shower you, universe confer you with a deep sense of peace and joy and happiness. That is what he's talking about. Rejoicing the welfare of all beings. That is true love. Base your happiness on the happiness of other people. Don't base your happiness, your pleasure on the pain and suffering of other creatures, other beings. That is what the world is doing. Just for 2 inches of pleasure, for the consumption of meat, billions upon billions of animals are being put through torture in their cattle farms and poultry farms, etc. That is what is called basing on other creatures' pain. Your pleasure is based on other creatures' pain. If you don't have this qualification, forget about formless worship. He says, having restrained the group of senses, even-minded everywhere, not in now and then, in every circumstance, rejoicing in the welfare of all beings, sarva bhuta hite rataha, they also reach me. They also reach God realizes. So it's not about form worship. And then he continues in the 5th verse.
Kleshodhigatarastesham avyaktasaktachetasam avyaktahi gatir dukkham dehavadbhiravapyate.
But there is a challenge. He says, greater is their difficulty whose minds are set on the unmanifest. For the goal, the unmanifest, is hard for the embodied to reach. Klesha. Klesha means difficult. It's hard. Adhikataram, meaning greater is the difficulty. Tesham, of those avyaktasakta chetasam, whose minds are set on unmanifest. Avyakta asakta chetasam. For the goal, the gati, is dukkham, very hard, very difficult for the embodied. I'll explain what it means. Greater is their difficulty who are very attached to the world and the other pleasures of the world. Adhikataram, it is, adhikataram means greater, superior in terms of its difficulty. Among human beings, there are people who are spiritually very, very limited in number. There are, most people are materialistic. They believe that, okay, life is all about enjoyment. And those people are on the spiritual path. Rare are the people on the right path. And although being on the right path, a lot of people get attached to the practices. Since it is so, greater is their difficulty. All right. For it is hard for the embodied. Dehavadbhi. Dehavadbhi means one who is very much attached to his body and the corresponding pleasures. In other words, a person whose focus of attention is always upon the body and the sense enjoyment that cater to the body, which includes eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin, and of course the organs of actions. The focus is always upon the body and the corresponding pleasures, and the mind and their emotional excitement, intellect, and the intellectual delight. To him, it is difficult. So therefore, what he's saying is that to practice formless worship, you need certain amount of detachment from your physical, emotional, intellectual pleasures. A person whose mind is full of desires, mind is infested with a lot of desires, who suffer from uncontrolled ego, Slightest provocation, his or her ego comes up, and there is conflict, there is confrontation, and creates dirty situation. To them, formless worship, stick to form worship. And then he says in the 6th verse,
Ye tu sarvani karmani Mayi sanyasya matparaha ananyenaiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate.
Yetu sarvani karmani, but those who worship me, Krishna says, those who worship me, renouncing all actions in me, he says, regarding me as supreme, meditating on me with single-pointed yoga. All right. He's giving us a condition. Verses 6 to 12 discusses progressive ways to reach God. So what are the progressive ways? He says, those who worship me, whenever an avatar, a self-realized soul, uses the word first person singular pronoun I or me, it is God speaking as it were. Whereas when in this limited world, when people uses the word I or me, it means their individual limited ego speaking. Whereas when Krishna uses the word me, means a supreme self, he has become one with God. He has transcended the limitations of the body, mind, and intellect and their corresponding pleasures. But those who worship me, how? Renouncing all actions in me. Meaning, if this action takes me one step closer to my goal of self-realization, I do it. If it doesn't, I don't do it. That way. Renouncing all actions, surrendering. When your actions are surrendered to the goal, the result is you will not get attached. The effect is you will not get attached to the fruit. You will not get attached to the result. And regarding me as supreme, a firm conviction, a deep conviction, determination that there is a higher pursuit, nothing else. Meditating on me with single-pointed yoga, that constant devotion. In and through all transactions of life, you maintain a constant awareness of that supreme reality. That is to say, meditating on me with single-pointed yoga, ananya yogena. Anya means other, ananya means no other thought. Such a person has chances, although he is worshipping formless worship. But those who worship me, renouncing all actions in me, regarding me as supreme, meditating on me with single-pointed yoga, they also progressive ways to reach God realization. How to practice? The topic 1 talks about the 2 types of worship, form worship and the formless worship. Now, in this topic, how to practice worship, progressive ways, all right? Renouncing all actions in me. At the moment, what happens is, anything that we do, there is a motive. What's in it for me? What's the benefit? It's difficult for most people to do what they need to do because that is the right thing to do. It is to be done. It's difficult for people to do something without expectation of a reward or a result. One's own interest. Or it could be somebody else's benefit. But when we are attached to the result, then we are contrary doing contrary to what Krishna is practicing, renouncing all actions in me. Such a person is able to maintain the single pointed yoga. And then what happened to such a devotee? He continues the discussion tomorrow. I will meet you tomorrow, 7 o'clock sharp, at the same place, same time. And we'll continue the discussion. We'll conclude with a Shanti Part. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.